Hello, everybody. This is your TA Chantal, and Dr. Foster and I were talking about a couple of other resources we could include for you before the course wraps up next week. And we've been getting some questions about setting up a LinkedIn profile, what to include on LinkedIn, how to network, and really how to optimize your profile, whether you don't have one or have an older profile. And so, what we wanted to do is make sure you guys had a launch point of creating your profile account. And of course, if you have any questions or want me to take a look at your LinkedIn and provide some feedback, always happy to do that. You can just email me with the link directly and I can give you some thoughts. Just a little bit of background about my experience with LinkedIn. I actually use LinkedIn pretty much every day at work for about 4 or 5 years when I was at the private recruitment firm in Scottsdale. And so this was a huge resource for us as we were looking for candidates, and there were quite a few things that I've learned, over those 5 years that help optimize a profile. And so I'm going to share my profile and walk you through some sections that are definitely important to include as you're considering yours. Now, the first thing I wanted to mention is you're going to see this button in the top right that says join premium or rejoin premium. And I've gotten a couple questions already about if it's worth it. I do not think as a candidate or a student you need premium. Premium is more so a feature for employers and hiring managers so that they can search and engage for candidates and people like yourselves, but it doesn't do, I noticed, a whole lot. And my firm actually paid for it while I was working there. And once I left, I didn't feel a need to include it. And I will say, in the mental health field as a whole, just depending on where you want to specialize in, less so the research side, but more so the clinical side, people aren't going to be as active on LinkedIn, but it serves as a landing page for them to find out a little bit more about you and what your professional presence looks like. And so, looking at my profile, I always like to add a banner. And if you are working, for example, at Phoenix Children's Hospital, you could pick the Phoenix Children's Hospital banner and add that here. If you don't have an organization that you want to be affiliated with or having a banner, you could always pick a, kind of scenic landscape, something. If you're in Arizona, you could do the mountains. If you're, somewhere else, you could pick a landmark, but something pretty general and neutral is always good in this banner. If not, it'll just be white with the LinkedIn sign, and that's completely fine as well. The thing that I want you guys to be thinking about, and something that Dr. Foster is going to send out a resource for in regards to headshots in professional photos, is whatever profile photo you upload, think about this less so in terms of what you'd put on social media and more so something you'd put on a company website. And so this is actually the photo that I have on my page as a therapist at the private practice I work at, and picturing something where there's not other people in the photo. It's very clear that you can see your face and you don't have sunglasses or you're far away or things like that is going to be important here. And so looking at the main first section of my profile, this little verification check, I have gotten feedback from employers, is something that's not a huge deal, but I think just adds a little bit of credibility to how active or professional your account is. All you'd have to do to get verified is when you set up your LinkedIn, they're going to ask you to verify your account. You don't have to, but if you do want to, you upload a front and back photo of your identification, whether that's your driver's license or a passport, and then within the end of the day, they'll verify it so that the people that click on your account know that you are who you say you are. I have my pronouns here, my current place of employment and my internship, as well as my current education, which is ASU. And this little title here, you can put anything related to either what role you'd like to pursue Whether you're an undergraduate student, for example, you could say undergraduate student pursuing bachelor's in computer science or pursuing bachelor's in psychology. If you're currently an intern or work somewhere related to your field, then you can include that here as well. Now, if you have work experience in another organization that's not quite related to your field or more tangential. For example, I work at a cute little indie bookstore one day a week in Scottsdale, and I have chosen not to include that on my LinkedIn just because it doesn't really enhance my work experience or is related to the field I'm doing now. Now, when it comes to the location, I have mine pretty centralized and targeted because my private practice is in this area. But you can put, if you're in Arizona, Greater Phoenix to be casting a wider net of when people are reaching out to candidates from a geographic location. So Greater Phoenix is great. People can do Greater Tempe. If you're not in Arizona, you can find a larger city and put that greater insert city name here just to be included in more potential searches, which is evident here in the analytics. So discovered my profile, I've been 28 views, 9 post impressions in the past 7 days, and I've shown up in 27 search appearances in the past week. Now, there are a couple of sections that are added that if you have a page where you have some personal projects or a research project, or if you're seeing clients, for example, like myself, you can create custom buttons that take you exactly to that link. And so this took me right to the landing page and the account page of my private practice website so they can sign up and schedule with me directly. But you can include, like I said, any link you'd like here. And how you do that is click on this pencil in the top right. This is where you go through all of your information. You guys are going to get a lot of AI suggestions with premium. That's really not something you need. And if you need some help with AI, you can always use ChatGPT to put in a draft of a section, get its feedback, and include it here. And so here, I edited a custom button that I added a website to where I work at private practice and just named the link request appointment. You can edit the custom button to include a link or a document, anything like that, and that just makes it really easy for individuals to find that at the top of your page. You can always add a profile section, which if you go to recommended and featured, right now, I included my resume, and I'll show you where that shows up in our field, but you could include a research project, you could include a video presentation you've done for a class, really anything that adds to your academic or professional endeavors is important to put here, but I wanted to add my resume for you all to take a look and how it's really easy for a potential employer to see that. They also have my contact information here to reach out. And so what that looks like, if we go to past the About Me section, is this featured section. And so like I said, there is not a shortage of things you can put. You can add a newsletter, a blog post, if you've written an article, or links for websites or things like that that are important for future employers or colleagues to see. Now, before we move to that page, the About section is really, I think, one of the most critical sections of your LinkedIn. And this is where candidates get ruled out a lot, even before moving to the experience. And so looking at the About section, I have mine written in first person because this is related to my therapist bio on my website. So I wanted to keep it cohesive intentionally, but there are a ton of other ways you can do this. You can keep it third person by saying Chantal is currently a graduate student pursuing an advanced degree, or you could move straight into pursuing an advanced degree in marriage and family therapy at Arizona State University, academic training and commitment to evidence-based practices. And so keeping it as formal and professional as possible is really important in this About section. Of course, you can add, a little bit of your personality or humor, but keeping it very succinct, knowing that this is what employers, as well as if you're applying to grad school, they will look at your LinkedIn account and your social medias to see not only how you're presenting and representing yourself online, but what your written communication looks like. And so this is a section that I would find really helpful to have someone take a look at for grammar or spelling, or you can even put into ChatGPT and ask it to confirm grammar or give suggestions for clarity or succinctness based on the role you're looking for. Now, something else I want to mention, like I said, grad schools, employers, they will look at your LinkedIn and they can actually see all of the activity you've ever done. And so all of the posts I've reposts are here. I've written 2 articles and they have that here. They're also able to see reactions and comments. And so just be certain that as you guys are going through your LinkedIn, if there's anything you need to scrub in terms of your activity, be sure to do that before you're putting your LinkedIn on your resume or other areas for people to find. Now, this is arguably the second most important area, your experience. And this is the area people typically have the most questions with, of understanding, okay, how much do I include? What do I include? And how detailed do I get? And so this is my most recent experience. I'm currently in my internship right now. And all I included in this was my supervisor and her information, as well as my focus in couples, individual, trauma, and family therapy. I've included another button that they can request an appointment. So if you're working somewhere that is client-based, you can put that here as well. But I have my entire focus and bio here. And if you're working in the mental health field where you're a clinician seeing clients specifically, you want to keep the About Me and this section very professional, very clinical. So in case a client or someone you're working with is looking at your information, they're not able to gather, too much personal information about you. Any roles or opportunities or employments, like I said, that aren't as applicable to the role you want. Like I said, my book job role is not at all on my LinkedIn, just because I don't think it would be beneficial. I have enough kind of working experience to not need it. However, if you are looking to build up employment history and kind of job presence in the past, then you might want to put a job that maybe isn't directly applicable, but just keeping the explanation more brief than not, or putting the description really relating it back to the role you're interested in. And so this was the job I had for 5 years. I broke it down into 2 main bullets again, because it's really important for my clients not to be able to find too much information about me. But before I had my role as a marriage and family therapist, this was a lot more built out. I probably had between 4 to 5 bullets per role that followed this cadence of past tense verbiage. And all I'll say here is you can keep it present tense and saying manage end-to-end, or manages end-to-end search process, or consults with. Just make sure that they're consistent throughout your entire experience, and whatever you put in the present is present tense. I'll be sure to add the link to my LinkedIn should you guys want to take a look at all and just see some examples of what I've put. This was a research-based role, which was important to the work I'm doing now in grad school, and so I made this a little bit more built out as well. Now, moving to education, the role or the rule that I've been taught is if you have a GPA that's below a 3.6 or a 3.7, wouldn't include it. I would just not include a grade point average at all. But if you are a 3.7 and above, or even a 3.6 and above, then I would include that on your profile. That's something where, again, depending on the program you're looking at for grad school or the role you're looking at, they can put a GPA minimum requirement. And although companies and firms like don't always adhere to that, you don't want to rule yourself out if you do have a 3.4, for example, and the threshold is a 3.5 before they even get to speak with you. So you can add all educations. I go back to high school, which you definitely don't have to do, but I took a couple of courses over the summer. I took an economics course from LSE, as well as my bachelor's and my current master's. And what you would put for the date, if you're an undergraduate right now, you would say August of your freshman year to the expected graduation date. If volunteering is really important or community involvement is a huge part of your role, especially for those of you considering the social work track, then this will definitely be a little bit more beefed up, and you can include, like I said, as many as you want in this section. Now, skills is an area that people like to get really creative with, and I have looked at profiles where there's like 15 skills on here. And I totally get the intention, but you want to keep these skills a little bit more sparse, because what they're going to be looking for is your resume as well as your About Me section and your experience section. So this can get a little bit bogged down and look messy. I only have 4 on here. I would say keep it under 5 and keep it to like technical skills versus soft skills. I think, let me see if it lets me add, is communication. Yeah, so you can put communication, interpersonal communication, written communication. Don't include those because those are, again, soft skills that are not as pivotal when a hiring manager is looking at your experience. And again, those are things they'll assess for in your resume and in an interview. So keep it, like I said, if you're going to put anything here, maybe 4 or 5 skills if the technical piece is important to you. Now, this section I'm only going to go over briefly because I don't know how applicable it'll be, but if you are going to be someone working with clients or want to get your old supervisor or manager to put a little something of a recommendation, that is always helpful, and it tends to go a long way with certain employers. So again, I worked in a role as a business developing manager where I was working with my clients and my candidates very closely. And so I have all of my recommendations on this page that people are able to see what it was like to work with me, my process was over the past 5 years. And again, it doesn't have to be clients that you have worked with in, of course, a non-confidential environment, but it could be supervisors you've had, managers you've had, even professors you maybe done research for, that can add to this section here. I really recommend having a professor that you're close with or done research for include one if you are applying to grad school, because that is feedback I've gotten in the past that was helpful for future professors to see. This section is honors and awards. You can make this as built out as you want. Again, don't feel like you have to get too creative here. And then again, just know that all companies you're following or interested in, definitely follow the ones that have a company page of you're interested in being employed there, because sometimes they may check. But just be certain that you're auditing which companies, which groups, and that they're staying pretty professional. Now that we've gone over what it's like to create, I'm gonna make you guys dizzy, a LinkedIn profile, I'm just gonna show you guys a couple of settings that I think are really important to know before you start, getting crazy on LinkedIn. And so if you go to settings and privacy, the main thing I wanna show you guys is the visibility section here, and go to profile viewing options. And so what LinkedIn doesn't tell you is if you just keep the default, everyone is able to see when you look at their LinkedIn profile. So if I look at Dr. Foster's LinkedIn, let's say I check it once a week because I really want to know what's going on, she's going to see every time that I check it. And that's not always something people are the most interested in. And so what you're going to want to do here is decide between private profile characteristics and private mode. I keep mine in private mode because sometimes before an interview, I like to do a little stalking and see what's going on. And, I check it a couple times and I don't necessarily need people to know that I'm checking it. So, private mode, the LinkedIn user that you're looking will just see this. So, there's no way to really link it back to you. Private profile characteristics is sort of an in-between a direct link to you and privacy, where it'll say, undergraduate student at Arizona State University or student in the Tempe area. And so, again, totally up to you of what you're most comfortable with, but unless you really want the person to know that you're looking at their profile, I would recommend private mode. Next, there are a couple of other things that are important to know if you're going to be working with clients. I have who can see your connections turned off. You're happy to turn it on, but that just means that individuals who click on your profile can physically click on the connections and scroll through them and see the names. And due to confidentiality and privacy, it's important that if a client, for example, were to look me up on LinkedIn, they wouldn't be able to see, potential people that they might know that I know. Same with members who you follow, profile discovery, profile using email address. All of these settings are important under visibility for you just to take a look at and make sure you're aware of how you're being perceived by others on LinkedIn and making sure that you're comfortable with the viewing options. Really, in this section, there's a couple of different things in terms of account preferences, all of that, in terms of how you want to lock your feed. But the most important thing, I would say, would be the visibility section. Perfect. And so that is my rundown of what my LinkedIn profile looks like, what is most important to include, and I will show you guys an example of my husband's LinkedIn that looks a little bit different, where as you can see, he has this background of Sedona. He only has his most recent experience. He's a master's student at Georgia Tech. He has greater Phoenix area to be pulled into more searches. Contact info, just be aware that contact info is public information unless you keep it private. And so I, for example, do not have my mobile. I have my work line and I have my work email. But Lou, for example, has a personal website for his coding projects. And so I would recommend only putting your email unless you're okay with potential marketers or people at companies pulling this information and potentially reaching out when you don't want them to. And he, for example, doesn't have his connections thing blocked. And so I'm able to go through and look at all of his connections. And again, for some people, that's great. For other people, they're not really wanting people to find that. So just keep that aware. And his About Me section is written in more third-person formal, where he just leads with machine learning engineer specializing in this versus I'm a machine learning engineer who specializes in. This is another example of a featured page where if you guys have done any research projects, or I know that some of you are going to be defending your thesis soon, this would be a great place to put that. And so this is Lou's most recent research project, as well as his professional resume for people to take a look at. Now, because he is a little bit more active in his field where people are looking at his LinkedIn versus some other, therapeutic sectors, he has about 4 or 5 bullets per section that he maintained the tense in all of them. Like I said, this is where he put his thesis project as well as a web application. So you can really customize this to as much or as little as you want, but really making sure that your profile is indicative of your experience, your professionalism. And like I said, if you guys need any help or would like me to take a look at your profiles, don't hesitate to let me know. And I'm always happy to schedule a Zoom session even to see what we can work on. But hopefully this was helpful for those of you that got through all of this. I feel like I told you guys this would be short, and it certainly was not. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your quarter. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.